Real Life with Susan Harf. Hi, everyone. I'm Rose Martin, and thanks so much for joining us for tips and strategies for ways we can navigate all the tricky things that sometimes can stump us in life. And like you, I cannot wait to hear what's on her mind today. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Rose. Thank you, and I'm happy to have you with us, too. So I'm thinking about the holidays. I'm so excited they're here, and I'm also thinking about holiday stress. A lot of clients are talking to me right now about that.
Right, and like, pulling my hair out, thinking
Exactly.
too many lists, too many things to do. All right, Susan, I might take notes on this one.
Well, believe me, I need to take my own advice sometimes as well. You know, I wonder about these expectations that we have and where do they come from? When I was in my very first job, so this was many, many decades ago, I came home one day and I said to my husband, I got to make cookies right now. I got to make them. And we celebrate Hanukkah. We don't celebrate Christmas. And so everybody in my office was making Christmas cookies. And he said, why do you need to make the cookies? I said, I don't know. I just got to make them. Everybody was making the cookies, so I had to make them too. Now, that's not to say that we don't make Hanukkah cookies. We do. But Christmas cookies are a thing. Mm-hmm. And people make them, and they give them to each other as gifts. They give them to friends and family when they come over to visit. It's not exactly the same with Hanukkah.
And you have separate recipes, very special recipes around the Christmas that you always make.
Sure. And so I love when I get to celebrate Christmas with my Christian friends because I love all the tradition and I love the cookies. But the point is that these expectations around everybody, the expectation around what people were doing in my office, that everybody that I knew in my office was making the Christmas cookies, and I kind of must have felt left out or something because I came home and I said, I got to make them. And so I think that's an example of how other people around you can sort of give you expectations that you may or may not want to accept. Sometimes people believe that they have to do the same thing that they did last year. I'm going to send out the cards. I'm going to make the cookies. I'm going to go to the round of parties. I'm going to get all the gifts. I'm going to wrap the gifts. We're going to make plans to see everybody in our lives who we want to see. It's kind of like rote. We've done it before, we're going to do it again.
Tradition.
But tradition doesn't necessarily mean that our lives don't change year after year. What if your job is harder now? What if your employment requires you to be there lots of hours, way into the early evening? What if you've just had a baby? What if you've added more children in your life?
What if you don't have a job this year?
What if you don't have a job this year? There are so many things that have changed with this pandemic, and there are things that change in general in the life cycle of a family. So maybe you need to say, this year I'm not going to send out the holiday card. I'm not going to send out the holiday letter. If that's what you need to do to be able to get a workout in, or get to the pool, or sit with a cup of tea with your neighbor, maybe that's what we need to start thinking about, are ways that we can change it up. That doesn't mean that we are forsaking all of the tradition. And the other thing I want to mention, along with expectations and where do they come from, sometimes we incorporate expectations that we don't even know how they came about or have had the opportunity to say, I have the right to evaluate this. I have the right to say, I'm not going to do this year. I was watching television the other night and I heard an advertiser say, you got to buy the couch now, because if you buy it now, it's 12 months of no pay. You don't start paying till next year. And buy it, you want it, get it. And I know there are going to be people who watch that advertisement, watch that commercial and said, let's go, we want the couch. Well, the fact is that we don't have to participate in everything the advertisers are telling us. Mm-hmm. If you watch commercials, my advice is to shut them off. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching commercials during the holiday season, it can make you crazy thinking about the things that people are telling you, or on the internet. People are telling you what to buy, what to get, what you need, what you need to have in order to have a fun holiday. No, you don't.
You know what I'm thinking about, that expectation? So almost as if you can't have people over unless you have a new couch, or unless you have all these decorations, or unless you have X, Y, and Z, because the stress and expectation is that.
Yeah.
So by relieving yourself of the stress of not participating in that, what does that do for us as, you know, even our physiological outlook, our stress outlook? What does that do if you just kind of say, you know what, I'm not going to do that this year?
It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful gift to give to yourself, because when we incorporate that stress, we give that stress to those around us. We invite, without saying it, we invite our children to be all revved up and to have that stress. I think that now is a really good time, coming out of this, those of us who were quarantined, etc., and who are leading a fuller life now, seeing family members we haven't seen in so long. And I don't want to give anybody the impression I had COVID. I did not have COVID. But when I say quarantine, we were all sort of
Sure,
quarantining.
in our houses.
We were not out and about. And now that we are, more so, with a mask on, now that we need to think about, did we learn anything in all of these months? Did we learn that we don't have to be rushing about in our lives? I'm hoping, my wish for you is that you are not returning to the same speed that you had prior to the pandemic. Because if it's one thing we learned during this time, is that we don't need to buy, do, get at all. We don't need to rush about and believe that we need all of the things and the materialism that people seem to be thinking about at this time of year. For those people who have lost a job and now they're looking for a new job, it is not a terrible thing for your children to teach them that Christmas was never supposed to be about the things, never supposed to be about a million gifts. And now is a very good time to spend time with your family playing a game, talking to each other, laughing with each other, making cookies together, doing things that don't take a lot of money, but what you are giving your children instead is the gift of your presence and your state of mind. I know for myself, when I am not rushing around, I feel so much calmer. I feel happier. And I don't have young children at home now, but I have grandchildren. And when they are around me and I am a more fuller, complete person who is more intentional, I know that that has a good impact on them and our adult children. Mm-hmm. So the fact is that losing a job is certainly not a wonderful thing. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not trying to gloss over that. In fact, we're going to have that as a separate topic at some point. But this is a time when you can have a wonderful holiday, even if you don't have a lot of money to spend. In fact, it is the time to start thinking about, in the future, when you have more money to spend, hopefully you can incorporate what you're learning now into those days. Because it doesn't mean you should go back to running around, buying a million presents, trying to make your kids happy by spending. All of that is not necessary. I know this to be true. And we need to think about the things that we can do as a family together that don't cost a lot of money. Go for a walk together. There's certainly, here in Roanoke, we have beautiful, beautiful, wonderful areas to walk and be together and enjoy each other. You know, my daughter-in-law taught me something recently. We were walking with our grandson in the stroller, and I noticed that he didn't have a toy on the stroller. And I said to my daughter-in-law, I'd like to get that for him. And she said, I really love it when we walk around the neighborhood and he's looking around at what he's doing. So we purposely, she said, we actually have toys for the stroller, but we chose not to put them on right there because I like the fact, she said, that when we walk, he looks at the trees, he sees the dogs barking, he looks at people walking by. He becomes more involved in his world. when he's not focusing on something, looking down at the stroller. And I thought that was a brilliant,
Yeah.
I thought my daughter-in-law is very smart
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
but I thought that was a brilliant thought as a parent for her little one. So
Yeah.
these are the things that we need to be thinking about is what are the natural things that we have around us that can enhance our lives right now.
You know, I love that she did that, because that's also a message
too.
for all of us, not to always be busy with our phones or something else that's distracting
Oh.
and not be aware of what's going on. I think the older I get, I remember always saying to my mom and dad, and my dad has since died, but what do you want? You know, what can we give you? And he said, honey, the greatest thing you can give me is a gift of your time.
And that is so important.
Yep.
Now, especially when we feel more comfortable being with each other.
Right.
We can, how wonderful it is that we can do that.
Yeah.
So give each other your time, and not just your time, but the presence of mind when you're together.
Mm-hmm.
And what gives you presence of mind is looking at that list and saying, do I really need to do all of these things? I'll tell you the thing that I gave up years ago. I don't send the cards anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love keeping in touch with friends, especially we've moved to a different city. I make it my point to call them up, to have a chat, to keep in touch in other ways, emailing. But I decided I don't want to sit and write those cards out for hours. I'm not going to do it anymore. And you know, there's a
And
cost.
it's okay.
It is. There's a cost benefit to everything. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
And did I enjoy the fact that people were hearing from us and hearing what we're up to? Yes, I do. I like that, but not more than I like being with my family and friends and not being harried. Another thing, we do not rush around to a million different people's homes, and we have one gathering, invite people over. We love it, we enjoy it, but we don't feel the need to rush around. The shopping, it's different for Hanukkah than it is Christmas in that way. It's there's really never been a focus on the shopping with Hanukkah. It's more for younger children to give them some gifts. But bottom line is, I really don't want people to think that if they can't spend a lot of money on gifts, that's going to harm anybody. Mm-hmm. That will only enhance your relationships, because then, like we were saying earlier, you need to turn to each other and enjoy each other. So when you're doing all of these extraneous things that you believe you need to do, instead of thinking about the tradition of what you've always done, instead of being rote about it, take a look at the list, decide what you can give up. Sometimes you may decide to, as we said, do together some of these chores. If you want to go out shopping for an afternoon, take your parent, take your child, do it together. If you feel like you need to do a lot of cooking, I love to cook for the holidays, and you have that be a family activity. Mm-hmm. Let's do that together. I'm cooking now more with my husband, and we love it. I really enjoy that. I love to cook with the grandchildren. I love to bake with the grandchildren. I'm sure you love to bake cookies with your kids. Those are the kinds of things that you need to incorporate, and take time out for yourself. Sometimes what goes by the wayside is, well, I'm not going to go to the gym because I don't have time. Right. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, it's easier to find a parking spot where I go swimming. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because people are engulfed in what they have to do. And there's no doubt about it. You have to do your job. There are things that are on your list that you're not going to give up, and you need to do them. But there are a lot of things that we believe we need to do that are really wants.
So the difference is what I'm going to choose to do because it's important to me, and not because externally I feel like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, because you really don't.
Exactly. And some people, a lot of my clients are saying, well, that's all well and good, but my family expects me to have Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving. My family expects that of me, so I'm going to do it. And I say, why? If it makes you so stressed out, and why put it all on you? Your adult siblings also have homes. They have some of them have condos, apartments, homes. They can have people over. even if you don't have a table that can have everybody at the table, we can sit with a plate on our laps. Nobody cares about that. That's fun. And so everybody has their way of entertaining. It doesn't have to be the same way. It doesn't have to be a formal table where we all sit together. Some people have the capacity to do that, others don't. But that doesn't mean that you can't help out and that you can't host sometimes. And if you're not hosting, you certainly can bring some things.
You can certainly do dishes.
And you can do dishes. And so, some of my clients, they say, I have to do all these things, and that means I have to make everything. I can't ask people to help me. No. When you say can't, it means you won't.
Oh, let's do that. When you say can't, it means you won't.
So I can't ask people to help with the meal. Means I won't ask people to help with the meal.
Right.
Why not? And I usually, when I probe that and I ask my clients, why not? Why won't you? They say, well, I like my sweet potato casserole better. Okay, well, if that's the case, then take responsibility for it and don't complain that you had to make it.
Right, and you were choosing. So instead of saying, I can't go to the gym or I can't do whatever, it's like, I choose not to. I won't do that because whatever.
I'm doing something else. Yeah. So we're not going to make a judgment about what you choose to do. But what we want to say is, if you're taking time for yourself, you will be better. If your family's important to you, and we say that it is, then do something for yourself to make yourself better for them. Get to the gym. Go for the swim. Take time out. Read a book. Take time out to have tea with a neighbor. These are things that rejuvenate us. It's good for our of course, exercising is good for our entire body, but also spending time with people is good for the soul. It's good for our mind. And those are the things that we need to be thinking about, rather than, well, I feel guilty if I don't make 10 banana breads for 10 teachers. Maybe you make some banana breads, and maybe you find a treat that you can purchase that is not a lot of money, but something that the teacher would enjoy, that doesn't involve you making 10 breads for 10
And you
teachers.
know what else I was thinking about? I love that, because there's also, maybe you have a talent of something that, you could easily make something easier or more personal, because maybe you paint, maybe you do crafts, maybe you do anything, right? And that would be a thing to share with people that's part of who you are anyway, while you're also kind of de-stressing,
And that's so important, Rose, because some of these, we're talking today about where do these expectations come from. They come from the commercials, they come from the office, they come from the family, and they come from yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you treasure yourself, if you value your own time, then you're going to realize that making something for someone is such a gift that you can give. And that because you didn't buy it does not mean that it's not as important to them, or that they won't value it as much. We put these expectations on ourselves, and so often that isn't even what everybody's thinking. I know I have a client who says, okay, I have Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, I have it all at my house. She never asked anybody to have it. She has the biggest house, so she just assumed that nobody else would want to have it. And in fact, that when she started asking, she found out they did. Mm. So you're right. We have talents that we can utilize, and I just believe that it is so much better when we give ourselves the night off, the afternoon off, the willingness to take care of ourselves, the willingness to exercise. All of these things during the holiday season will make us more present. It will make us enjoy the holidays for ourselves. And that business of I have to, or that switch in your head that says I will feel guilty if I don't say yes to bringing the 12 breads to the holiday party, or the 12 batches of cookies, whatever it is that you used to do, does not mean that we need to do that now. And so I want those expectations to stop coming from everybody else. When someone has an expectation of you, they're inviting you to consider that. It doesn't mean that it's a done deal. You have the right to say, here's my favorite line. I don't just say no. I say, I'd like to say yes, and I'm going to say no. Mm. And sometimes I do say yes. Mm-hmm. I actually am bringing brownies to a Hanukkah dinner on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to make 12 batches. I'm making one batch. And I'm part of a group of people who are baking. So yes, you can do your part, but just because other people have expectations of you does not mean that you need to fulfill them. Instead, you need to think about, how am I not going to feel guilty by saying no? And the trip down that lane is to appreciate your own time, to appreciate yourself, to understand that you absolutely have the right to say, I'm going to choose to go swimming today instead of whatever it is somebody asked you to do. That's okay. It's okay to say no.
It's okay to say no, and it's okay to choose. If you are participating, like you chose the brownies, you love to cook, that will be the thing that you choose to do. So you're great at reframing our perceptions of what the expectation is, what we do and don't need to do. This was good. This was good.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Susan Harf and all of you for joining us. We've learned a lot about expectations, haven't we? We've learned a lot about what we can and can't do and how to de-stress during this really, really busy time of year. If you'd like to reach out to Susan, her address is reallife@blueridgepbs.org. Reach out, say hi, send her a message. I know she'd love to hear from you. Until next time, everybody, let's go out there and have a great holiday season.